CGTN's Rachelle Akuffo spoke with Temir Porras for more on Venezuela's economic crisis. He is the founder and CEO of Ventuari Partners, and she started off by asking him how the economy crashed.
Well, in the first place, you had at the beginning in 2014 the collapse in the international prices of oil. And Venezuela is extremely heavily dependent on that commodity. And this is what I would say triggered the economic meltdown that we have seen for the past four years, as I said. Second, Venezuela has I would say, rather peculiar foreign exchange policy that has, I would say, further deepened the economic downward cycle. There is a black market also that fluctuates in a very chaotic way. So again, this second factor also has made it very difficult for any actor in the Venezuelan economy to organize itself, to organize production, to put the economy again back on track. And third, I would say the political divide. For it to stabilize, it needs to, implement some policies that need support both from the government and the opposition that is a majority in the parliament.
Now let's also look at some solutions. We saw that President Maduro recently tried to turn to digital currencies, establishing the oil-backed petro-cryptocurrency as a potential option and as a potential workaround for the U.S. sanctions. What has the government tried so far to really try and turn the economy around, and what's been working?
I think that the key factor today, something that is within the reach of Venezuelan authorities and the Venezuelan society, is the recovery of the oil production. As I said earlier, the oil production, Venezuela is a country that normally 5 years ago was producing 3.3 million barrels of oil and exporting over 2 million barrels of oil a day. And this production has declined mostly during 2017. So some efforts have to be put into the recovery of the oil production. Deals have to be reached with the main companies operating alongside PDVSA, which is a national Venezuelan oil company, in order to put in place a plan to recover the oil production. This is going to be challenging because, again, of the sanctions that only affect Venezuela's ability to raise money in the debt capital markets. But again, this is I would say the main field where the Venezuelans should focus to recover a cash flow that allows the country not only to meet its international obligations, but also, again, to meet its internal obligations. There is need for investment. There is need, again, to sustain the social programs. Oil production will be the key factor.
So then what needs to happen to get more investment back into Venezuela?
The current sanctions imposed by earlier this year by the U.S. government on Venezuela prevents U.S. capital and U.S. persons to provide capital to the government and to the government of Venezuela and the oil company. The government needs to find an agreement with the opposition, which is closer to the U.S. government, in order to make a formal request, which again that includes all the political parties, to the government of the United States to soften or to cancel the sanctions, because this is going to make it very, very difficult for investors to come back to Venezuela. And right. Then you need some more, I would say, classic structural reforms that need to be implemented. The foreign exchange is very important. Some legislations also that might be more friendly to foreign investors. I would say that those three issues have to be addressed.
And I do want to take a look at some of the issues and how they perhaps are spilling over regionally. We know that other Latin American countries, including Peru, have introduced special visas so they can take on some of the Venezuelans who have decided to flee. So how would you see this in terms of the economic consequences for the rest of the region?
The shrinking and the crisis in the Venezuelan economy has affected most of its neighbors. Colombia is a very also very imbricated economy with Venezuela, and definitely the situation in the country is affecting exports in most of the countries of the region. But again, I mean, these countries have been, trying to avoid the situation, finding new markets for their products. I think that unless the government and the authorities tackle these macroeconomic issues, it's going to be difficult to put Venezuela back on track of what it had achieved.